When your favorite team suffers a big defeat, it's hard to accept it. But when it's against a rival, it's even more painful. Well, that's exactly what went down during the 2011-2012 season when Arsenal lost to Man United by 8-2 at Old Trafford. It was the first time they had conceded 8 goals in over a century, having lost 8-0 to Loughborough in the second division in 1896. That's why many Manchester United fans consider this match to be the best game they've ever seen. For those who don't know how painful this match was and why it's so hard for Arsenal fans to swallow, you need to know about the rivalry between the two clubs, which started after Arsène Wenger arrived at Arsenal, because before his arrival, no one took Arsenal seriously and thought they were a real competitor. And more than that, Man United was winning everything without a single competitor. But unfortunately for them, Wenger came to create an unstoppable team and deprive them of many titles, and this created an enmity between Alex Ferguson and Arsène Wenger that lasted for years. And to be honest, I miss the old days when matches and statements were full of attacks and drama, as the intensity of competition between players and coaches makes matches more exciting and interesting.
Well, Arsène Wenger seems to have a comment every week. He has no experience of English football. He's come from Japan and is now telling everybody in England how to organise their football. Then I think he should keep his mouth shut, firmly shut.
That's what used to happen in every match between players and coaches, before, during, and after the games, and every time they meet, they give us matches full of excitement and yellow and red cards, although the competition has diminished over the years. And by that, I mean that the competition in the period in which this match was played was no longer what it used to be, especially with the emergence of new rivals, such as Chelsea in London, then Man City in Manchester, and their level has also decreased, especially Arsenal, which went to a crisis because of the stadium they built and caused them to lose their best players and turned from a team full of experienced players and leadership personality to a team with young players who quickly collapse. On the other hand, we have Man United, who also weren't what they used to be, especially when the results of the new investors at Man City started to appear, but the Red Devils were still strong because they had just won the Premier League and reached the Champions League final, which they lost to FC Barcelona, and they had the money to buy the best players. And since we're talking about money and signings, this game was played at the start of the season and before the summer transfer market closed, and that summer, Arsenal had sold their best players and had no intention of signing good ones to replace them. And here I'm talking about Cesc Fabregas, who went to FC Barcelona, and Samir Nasri to Man City, because both players were still 24 and were the heart of the team, especially Cesc Fabregas, around whom Arsène Wenger built the team, not to mention that he also sold Gaël Clichy to Man City and Emmanuel Eboué to Galatasaray and other players, while signing young players like Chamberlain, who was just 17 from Southampton, and Carl Jenkinson, who was 19 from Charlton, both of whom were still young and needed time to adapt. The only player considered to be ready was 24-year-old Gervinho, who had just won League One alongside Hazard. On the other hand, Man United were also signing young players, but they signed experienced players too, like Ashley Young from Aston Villa, and Phil Jones, who was in demand from all the big clubs, but he was signed by Man United in the end, and the 20-year-old David De Gea, who was already good at the time with Atletico de Madrid. So Man United started their season strong, beating Man City in the FA Community Shield to win their first trophy of the season, and in the Premier League they won both games they played, beating West Brom and Spurs. But sadly, Arsenal made a poor start to the season, drawing with Newcastle and losing to Liverpool at home. So everything points to Arsenal being weak and unable to win this game, especially as they haven't won at Old Trafford since 2006. But before the game, we usually see the coaches attacking each other. This time it was the opposite. Alex Ferguson sympathized with Arsène Wenger, saying that Arsenal fans shouldn't attack Wenger like that because he has done a great job in the past years and there is no better coach who can replace him. Everyone took this statement to mean that the game was already settled before it was even played, and that Arsenal is no longer a threat to Man United. And on August 28th came the day of the match, but Arsenal had no players to rely on. As we said, the midfielders had been sold, and even the new signings couldn't start the match except for Carl Jenkinson, because Gervinho was sent off in the previous game against Newcastle, and Chamberlain is only 17, can't risk him in a game like this. On the other hand, all Man United's new signings started the game, so Arsenal began with a 4-3-3. Goalkeeper, Szczęsny. Centre-backs, Laurent Koscielny and Johan Djourou. Carl Jenkinson as a right-back and Armand Traoré as a left-back. Midfielders, we have Francis Coquelin, who was a starter for the first time, alongside Aaron Ramsey and Tomasz Rosicky. In attack, we have Theo Walcott and Andrei Arsène as wingers, and captain Robin van Persie as a striker. As you can see, most of these players were only at the start of their careers and didn't have enough experience to withstand the pressure of a game like this. Yes, of course, it's because Arsenal have sold a lot of important players, but they've also had a lot of injured and missing players. As we said, Gervinho and Emmanuel Frimpong were sent off in previous games, and Alex Song was banned for 3 games for rioting in the previous game against Newcastle. While Man United started in a 4-4-2 with new signing David De Gea as a goalkeeper, unfortunately, the defensive line was almost all injured or not ready, with captain Patrice Evra the only starter. Right back, Chris Smalling, and centre-backs, Phil Jones and Johnny Evans. Midfielders, Tom Cleverley, Anderson Oliveira, Ashley Young, and Nani. In attack, we have Wayne Rooney and Danny Welbeck. And at 4 p.m., the match began. At the beginning, the game was balanced. Both teams created chances and threatened the opponent's goal, until the 22nd minute arrived in which everything changed, as Welbeck outran 3 defenders and scored the first goal. But after only 5 minutes, Arsenal got a penalty. Van Persie stepped up to take the kick, but unfortunately for him, De Gea saved it, and their punishment was swift, as just a minute later, Ashley Young scored the second goal. Unfortunately, in the 35th minute, Welbeck, the scorer of the first goal, got injured and was replaced by Hernandez. Shortly after, Rooney scored a deceptive goal. It was his 150th goal for Man United. Before the end of the first half, Arsenal managed to score their first league goal of the season through Walcott, and the half ended 3-1. In the second half, the same thing happened. The first 20 minutes were scoreless, but in the 64th minute, Arsenal collapsed, allowing Man United to score 3 goals in 5 minutes. Rooney scored a deceptive goal identical to his first, followed by Nani 3 minutes later, and in the 70th minute, substitute Park Ji-sung scored the 6th goal. However, 4 minutes later, Van Persie scored Arsenal's second goal, assisted by new signing Carl Jenkinson. Unfortunately, while Wenger was happy to have signed a good right-back, his joy was short-lived as he received a second yellow card and was sent off. So with Arsenal down to 10 men, Man United continued to dominate. In the 80th minute, Rooney scored a hat-trick from a penalty, and just when everyone thought the game was over, Ashley Young scored the 8th goal. And by that, the new signing Ashley Young had an outstanding game, scoring 2 goals and providing 3 assists. But the Man of the Match award went to Wayne Rooney, who scored a hat-trick and provided an assist. As for the reasons for the defeat, they are very obvious. At this period, it was clear that Man United were very strong, but Arsenal entered the game without respecting them enough and continued to attack, which made them leave spaces, especially with the speed of Man United players, which made them suffer. Without forgetting, their defense was distracted and not focused, and the attacking players didn't help them in defense. As Armand Traoré recently said, he was defending on his left flank against 2 players, Nani and Smalling, and Arsène wasn't trying to help him. And by the way, Traoré left just after that game, despite having been at the club since he was 16. And the same thing happened on the right flank. And that's because after missing the penalty and conceding a goal straight away, they all collapsed and lost interest in the game and what was happening. Because, as we said, they were still too young to get back into the game, which made them make a lot of mistakes. And worse than that, the coach didn't intervene to calm them down or make substitutions. And with this result, Man United moved up to first place by 1 goal ahead of Man City, while Arsenal went from bad to worse, dropping to 17th place. Arsène Wenger described the defeat as humiliating, saying, "Of course you feel humiliated when you concede 8 goals. It was a terrible day." While Alex Ferguson sympathized again with Arsène Wenger, saying he has been a big adversary and will continue to be when he gets his big players back. But after this statement and this match, everyone considered that it was time to end the competition between these 2 coaches after Ferguson outplayed him at the end, because Arsenal were in a very bad situation. Especially since after the match, Arsène Wenger started to justify the defeat, saying that they lost because of the many absences they have who were 8. And Van Persie replied to him saying, "I don't think we can hide behind injuries or suspensions. It is no excuse, they had injuries too. This is football. We gave our maximum, but it was clearly not good enough." That's what made it clear that Van Persie could also leave. When they asked Arsène Wenger if he intends to sign any new players, He replied that it's too early to judge the summer transfer market. He added that if he found the players he is looking for, he would sign them. If he didn't sign anyone, it meant he hadn't found the players he was looking for. He also apologized to the 3,000 fans who traveled with them to Old Trafford, offering them free tickets for upcoming matches. Despite the manager's statements, Arsenal signed several players immediately after the match. South Korean striker Park Chu-yeon from Monaco, Brazilian left-back Andre Santos, German defender Per Mertesacker, Yossi Benayoun on loan from Chelsea, and the most important signing that still helps them today was Mikel Arteta from Everton. Thanks to these signings, Arsenal managed to stay in the top 4 and finished the season in 3rd place. And as you know, Man United and Man City were fighting for the title until the last minutes when Aguero scored. So Man United ended the season without any trophies, despite the good start. But if we forget the way they beat Arsenal, Man United had a bad season as they were knocked out of the Champions League in the group stage, and they lost to Man City home and away 6-1 and 1-0. And that was the reason why they lost the league, because they were equal on points, but it was Man City that won on goal difference. I mean, when you lose by 6 goals, it doesn't mean there's just a difference of 6 goals. No, it means there's minus for you and plus 6 for them, making it 12 goals, not just 6. But that game has a special flavor, and as we said, many Man United fans consider it to be the best game they have ever witnessed. And the curse of not beating Man United at Old Trafford has stayed with Arsène Wenger forever, because until he left Arsenal in 2018, he never won in that stadium, until his player Arteta came to break that curse in 2020, after more than 14 years. And by now, you know the situation of the two clubs, so there's no need to say anything.